Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our CloudLogix webinar. This is Practical Supply Chain Management. On behalf of everyone involved, I'd like to say thank you for taking some time to join us today. I'm Nick with CloudLogix, and I'm pleased to introduce you to today's event. So we have a fantastic conversation planned for you today, and to start it off, I'd like to just introduce you to our speakers that are with us. So today we have one of our special guests here, Marcio Ferraresso. He's the founder of Henshin Solutions, which is a top-tier business innovation and consulting firm that helps transform personal and business success through strategically coaching teams in contract management, supply chain initiatives, and process and people management. So for those of you who may not know Marcio, he has a great record of success throughout his professional career with organizations like Embraer, Motorola, and most recently as the director of supply chain for heavy industries. So Marcio, thank you for joining us today. Super excited to talk with you. Would you mind maybe sharing quickly with our guests, I guess maybe the motivation behind what you're doing at Henshin?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone, and a heartfelt thank you to Nick and Jalen for this wonderful opportunity. I'm truly honored to be here among fellow professionals passionate about making tangible and impacting the world of the supply chain. So the word Henshin means transformation, and this is the heart of our mission. We don't just offer consultants, we aim to partner with people in a journey of transformation that goes beyond the status quo, and we drive substantial savings and remarkable results. I also would like to take the opportunity to announce our new and exclusive mentorship program that we carefully crafted to bridge the gap in practical training for those dealing with these complex projects. We're not just teaching the theory, but we are forging the trailblazer of tomorrow with skills that deliver today. So this is our mission and intention. Thanks, and motivation. Thanks, Nick and Jay.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So like Marcio mentioned, we do have Jalen Wallace with us as well. She's the VP of Product and Client Success at CloudLogix. So she's been with our firm for over 10 years and she's really used her supply chain and logistics expertise to build the foundation of our supply chain visibility software. Much of her experience is leading operations and working with companies like Northrop Grumman, Bombardier, Triumph Aerostructures, and many others. So, Jay, thank you as well for joining us. Would you mind introducing CloudLogix to our viewers?
Sure. So as Nick touched on, we are a supply chain optimization software company, and I've got over 20 years in logistics, and so a lot of that experience has gone into what we offer today. But we have a front end solution that addresses the areas of order management, shipping, and freight invoice management. And then in addition to that, we also do software integration services. We have logistics support that we offer, as well as some custom software services that we can do as well. So a little bit of everything, and lots of fun over here at CloudLogix.
Excellent. Thanks, Jay. So for everyone who's watching, thanks again for your interest in our conversation. The purpose of this webinar is really to cover some practical supply chain management tips and maybe some things you should consider about software that could really simplify supply chain management operations. So as you can see here, we're going to cover several supply chain challenges and software best practices throughout this conversation. And so with that, I'd like to dive into our conversation a little bit here, guys. So let me take a step back here. Let me get to the question first. I want to ask you a little bit about being proactive. So obviously that's something I'm sure everyone's heard a billion times, right? Let's not be reactive, become proactive. Obviously everyone wants to avoid disruptions and surprises. So Marcio, I'll start with you. Could you share with our viewers some of your thoughts about how you might look to stay in front of supply chain challenges?
Sure, it's my pleasure. So I believe that when we rely solely in past indicators to predict the future, it's like we are driving a car while only looking in the rear view mirror. So this approach will prevent us from seeing what is right in front of us and preparing for emerging challenges and opportunities. So I see that many leaders today, they overlook a crucial aspect of management, the mission and the vision of their respective areas. So these will serve as a beacon that will guide us on our journey. It's vital that from these foundational principles, we create strategic plans and we chart clear routes to achieve this desired vision. Of course, indicators in turn they're valuable tools, but to check if we are on the right track or if we are moving at the appropriate pace. However, we need to have this very firm. They should not be confused with management itself. And I also would like to bring, Nick, two concepts that I really hold in high regard with me. The first one is the early warning. So while the KPIs reflect the past, the early warning allows us to be more proactive. It's achieved when we combine knowledge, experience, and even intuitions, allowing us to perceive early on whether something's going well or not. The second one that needs to be very close to each other is the dark cockpit. So I don't know if you have heard about a beautiful airplane called Constellation. It was necessary a third crew member in addition to pilot and co-pilot only to monitor dozens of indicators. So with the dark cockpit concept, you will receive only the necessary information in the right moment that will allow you to focus on what really matters. It's like the pilot, we have like the Fino aircraft. You can only fly with one pilot because the pilot can concentrate in the flight itself. And also, it's very important to remember that we live in an era that artificial intelligence is increasingly integrated into our processes. So we need to embrace and harness its benefits. And with all these combined, it will allow us to free up time to focus on what really matters. So in my opinion, is building meaningful relationships, developing our team, and crafting innovative and proactive strategies.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you for that insight. So you mentioned obviously, early warnings and dark cockpit, and those almost seem to be something that kind of work harmoniously together. What do you have any sort of examples of early warnings or any methodology that maybe you've implemented with teams that you've worked with?
Yes, I remember that I used to tell my team that significant delays don't happen overnight. So if we have a cohesive team, you can detect early warning signs that a project may be off the track, such as poor communication, unacknowledged purchase orders, or supplier scorecards that just overlook risk management. Those are critical factors that will contribute to the accurate management. I remember also one instance that we had a software development supplier doing a very important software level A for aviation. And we are using a gap analysis chart to compare what was planned in terms of deliverables and activities versus actual progress. And by comparing this, it revealed to us an imminent risk of failing this first software audit that would be a disaster for us. So despite the supplier's recovery plans, a realistic assessment showed that the available time compared to the necessary effort were misaligned. So we could note this in advance and quickly took corrective actions by reallocating resources and adjusting priorities inside our company and with the supplier, and which effectively mitigated the risk and put the project back on track.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I kind of want to bring Jay into this. Obviously, Marcio alluded to some, software, using software resources as well to kind of indicate early warnings. Jay, your team deals with supporting other teams on a daily basis to improve crisis management and for monitoring compliance and things like that. What features or tools do you think are important towards managing this endeavor?
Sure. So thank you, Nick. So Basically, as Marcio mentioned, early warnings are really important. And a lot of people these days, they have established software products that are being used daily to house information, manage data, etc. But a lot of these systems don't have active monitoring features. So in today's day and age, there are several lightweight plugin tools that are available that don't replace your existing software, but they can enhance your current system or systems of record, so they can serve as monitoring tools for you, and they can basically use milestones to generate event-driven messaging. So this will give you the end-to-end visibility that you need, and you can get notifications and alerts for any potential exceptions or disruptions to your process. So the goal is to try to log or get notified or monitor for any types of issues as early on in the process as possible.
Love that. Thank you. So, with this overview, there are obviously some specific challenges that we kind of mentioned at the beginning that we want to cover, and I think a lot of those are relatable for a lot of organizations. So, really, I want to start with cost control. Marcio, what's an effective way to really begin to take an actionable step towards better cost control?
Yeah, Nick, I believe that we need to keep things simple, and we cannot forget about this. So sometimes we try to use very advanced tools and techniques, and we forget what is simple. So to me, a good strategy is to use the Pareto principle, often called the 80-20 rule, that suggests 80% of the results can be attributed to 20% of the costs or efforts. So in cost control, this means that if we focus on the top 20% of the costs that account for 80% of the total expenditure, we will do a great job. And if we target those areas, companies can really achieve significant savings with fewer efforts.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. Obviously, the 80-20 rule. If you've been in business management for a while, you're probably familiar with it or you've heard of it. I'm curious about this. Say, obviously, someone has identified this as a potentially useful method for them. Marcio, how would you begin to implement this? What would like the first few steps of this look like?
Right. So the first reminder is that even if we choose this technique, we need to manage 100% of our costs. No doubt about this, because we live in a competitive environment, and even small amounts can make a huge difference. But we need to start with something. So ideally, I would list the most important items that we will procure for a project, not only based on the cost, but also in the complexity and lead times as well. And let's say, for an example, if we're talking about an aircraft development, we'll have to work with the engine, the flight controls, the avionics, the landing gear, and the main structures. I'm sure they would be the first items. And after we populate all of them, we need to verify how much each of them represents in terms of the total, and find who are the 20% we need to focus the most. So this kind of information will be very important when you need to create your budget, your baselines, or even proposals. Sometimes you do propose before even starting the project. And so it helps you a lot in terms of reducing risks. And if we are like building this based on assumptions, because sometimes we don't have quotes, projects, designs, etc., we should try to count on other professionals and support and experience, because these also help us to make those assumptions as precise as they can be.
Yeah, very good point there. Jay, do you want to jump in here? There's, Marcio presents this wonderful management principle, and we have an action plan in place for it, right? As we're kind of building out this timeline here. Software is a key piece to obviously help in this venture, and can provide real-time data for analysis like this. What does that look like?
Sure. So the best way to explain it is to go into some specific examples. So regardless of what kind of company you have, everybody ships, right? So let's talk about these. Everybody's got these core software pieces. So if we just talk about shipping, for example, you've got a TMS. Pretty much everybody has one. Most of them capture what the booked rate is, for example, at the time of booking. So you may have some way to process that freight invoice when it comes in as well, and that freight invoice might be handled in the same software. It might be handled someplace different. Either way, some people have situations where they're able to audit easily the invoiced amount versus the actual booked amount to determine if there's any rate discrepancy there. But sometimes those things are fragmented and they're not connected. And so, that's one of the first primary places where you can try to look for any type of data discrepancies to address any type of cost savings initiatives. But the other thing is there are a lot of TMSs that don't capture certain things, such as maybe you want to see the rates that were offered and not chosen at the time of booking. So that's a really good example because there are plugins out there, plugin tools out there that can save that information too, so they can be analyzed. So if you wanted to review a specific lane, for example, you can say, all right, well, we're always using this same carrier and the same service level for this specific lane, but we could save, $1,000, $500 per shipment if we were to go this route or use this other carrier. So again, this is just an example, but there are all kinds of features out there that can help you capture and analyze information in many functional areas that your core products may not be seeing. So by adding these other enhancement tools to your portfolio, you can centralize certain information from these siloed databases, and then you can start to see more of the picture and you can start to work on continuous improvement and all kinds of cost avoidance measures.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. I think a key piece is the data that doesn't get utilized probably enough is what may be offered and not actually used when you're talking about shipping and freight. So, having that data can really help you reduce costs because it just highlights it, for you. So I kind of want to get some information on a bunch of these different topics that we talked about. So I'm going to jump over to um, the next thing, which is shortages, specifically labor shortages, which obviously can be a big factor in different ways in terms of rising costs and inefficient processes. So the pandemic probably has, I would say, maybe forever kind of altered the relationship between employers and staff and the way that working conditions are. And it seems like right now it's really difficult to find employees and maybe even tougher to kind of keep them around. Marcio, do you have any strategies for how to handle this?
Right. So this is a very important point here. So I believe that the supply chain sector is currently grappling with a significant labor shortages. And in order to work with this, a quote that resonated with me was, worse than training a professional and having him leave is not training him and having him stay. Why I'm saying this? Because I see that companies should shed their apprehensions about investing in training out of the fear that employees might just depart afterwards. And it might happen anyway. But if we dedicate resources to comprehensive training across all departments, not only supply chain, and by fostering a collaborative, stimulating, and yet welcoming work environment with a very particular focus on positive leadership. This is very important to me. Business can enhance employee retention. It is really possible. So integrating teams with also diverse nationalities, age groups, and cultural backgrounds can also infuse fresh perspectives, foster innovative solutions and opportunities. And I experienced this in Japan and it was really great. So it's a advice that I give to anyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Um, that is an important quote to think about that obviously is at the top of the screen here that you mentioned. Kind of to that point too, is internal mistakes can sometimes outweigh, the negative costs of external disruptions, because ultimately, something internally could potentially cost you a customer, and obviously, you never know. You can't really put a price tag on that per se. I did see a study that kind of backed up, what you were saying about invest in your employees and don't be afraid to train, is from Council of Supply Chain Management. They said that 64% of respondents in the survey they did reported that there was a talent shortage in their respective organizations. And so really, to your point, cultivating those relationships and that positive growth environment can be really powerful. Is there, what are some best practices, I guess, Marcio, for ways to maybe properly improve performance for employees? What are some things that maybe you've implemented or talked about with people?
Right. So, my experience with leadership showed that not only the new generation of professionals that just arrived in the market has a different mentality, but also after the pandemic, experienced professionals changed as well. So, like salary and benefits, they might even be considered a commodity now. So, what I saw recently is that talented people, they want to feel listened, believed, and more than this, they want to feel that they are making the difference in the world and that they will leave a legacy, which for me is a great competitive advantage. If we, as leaders, if we open up our minds and allow this to happen. So, people with this kind of mentality, they also enjoy being challenged. So we can gain a lot of competitiveness in the company because of this. And so it's time to offer training, it's time to offer challenge, and very important, recognize every single achievement, which, by the way, is nothing new. I remember Dale Carnegie used to say this decades ago. And that's why in our company, we are investing a lot in a coaching mentorship program, because it's time to go together and to make things different. Not only throw a lot of training and train hours of training to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I'm glad you kind of mentioned, coaching and training, because hopefully you don't mind. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because you also mentioned it at the beginning of this webinar. Your coaching and your coaching program that you offer at Henshin. I didn't know if this would, maybe be a relatable place to kind of touch on that.
Sure, it is. Because what happens today, you can ask people to make and take several hours of training. And of course, there are many valuable trainings available. But when you go to the production, or let's say you are managing a software supplier that will fail in one SOI audit, what do? You won't find anything saying, oh, in this case, you take this action and that action and that action. It takes years to prepare a professional. And we saw that many professionals left companies. So what we are thinking, we are advancing 10 years in one, because we not only show the path, or we go together. That's the biggest difference we have. Showing and doing together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The old saying, teamwork makes the dream work. So, Jay, Marcio has brought up some great points here in terms of how to cultivate a winning organization, I suppose, is maybe a way that you could put it. How can software play a role in either labor shortages, if you're struggling to find employees, or optimizing maybe processes if you're looking to kind of increase productivity, even if you have the right number of staff?
Sure. It really all comes down to efficiency. So you need to eliminate, you hit it, you need to eliminate as many manual processes as possible so that you can work as lean as possible. So for some of your existing employees, if you are removing some additional steps for them, or manual steps, then they might have some time to take on some other tasks to help keep things afloat while you're trying to while we're dealing with labor shortages or trying to find the right talent. And to add to Marcio's point, adding new employees and having to train them. Having the right technology can help you standardize these processes and make onboarding more efficient as well. Then you can get the new staff up and running quickly. You've got a standard now. So, these are modern times. We've got technology to help us with processes and as well as the social aspect. So we shouldn't have any major issues with language barriers anymore. And further, I mean, people learn in different ways. So there are different methods for reiterating training information and presenting it for optimal human absorption, such as wizards, videos, support staff, etc. So there are all these tools available, and it's absolutely paramount to embrace those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, I want to transition to the second part of shortages here, which is material shortages. Marcio, do you have any thoughts on the current state of challenges like this and maybe some insight to overcoming or navigating this?
Yeah, I'm having conversations with people in different companies and in different countries, and this subject is really hurting companies and people. So I believe that we are presently still grappling with some material shortages and escalating prices. So it's the worst case. Even though there are some indications that the market is starting to return to its usual state, especially, let's say, the aerospace industry. We have smaller companies that face significant risks due to ramp up of the big guys like Boeing and Airbus. So as Jay was saying, it's modern times. It's time to think different. So we're facing an unforeseen rapid recovery, coupled with these repercussions from the conflict in Ukraine and other present complex challenges. So if we are not proactive in doing our planning, using the right tool, as Jalen was saying, and having collaborative efforts, we will not find a way to create essential strategies to navigate in this scenario efficiently. So we still need to combine this with building long and strong relationships, because this is a key factor to survive in situations like this. I remember a case I had recently that I need some material, and I called a friend that I interacted with him 10 years ago in different companies. And he was helping me find the material. He was not selling it to me. He was not making any money. He was just helping me. So building those strong relationships helps us a lot when we combine everything else, tools, techniques, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point to establishing connections and really, maintaining relationships, because you never know, when you might need a hand. And kind of to that point about ramp ups, obviously they happen, and things come up that you're obviously needing more material faster, and then you have limitations on who can produce material, and so now you're obviously stuck reaching out to find different people who can produce it. And then there's this huge snowball effect of rapid communication, modifications, all these different things. How can software kind of help be a collaborative solution to make that happen?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, collaboration's key. You have systems that are logging inventory data, supplier data, purchase order data, but there are still a lot of people relying on emails and phone calls between suppliers and everybody else to get the status of incoming product that they're looking for example, so they can complete an order for their end client, let's say. So by having the appropriate tools in place to allow suppliers and companies to collaborate effectively, which of course has to be user-friendly, but the more milestones that you're able to capture as early as possible, the more you'll be able to be proactive here. So for example, I have a PO that I made with a supplier. I'm expecting it to be on my dock by X date. Well, I don't usually know that I have a problem until that date comes and I don't have my parts yet. So I can either contact my supplier a week ahead of time, or I can have the right tool in place so that I can have my supplier let me know when that piece is in manufacturing, or when it's being source inspected, or as soon as the shipping label's being created. All of these are milestones that are important for me to monitor the progress of my order. So the more visibility, the better, of course.
Definitely, definitely. Visibility is very important, more and more every day. Um, speaking about relationships too, I think you know, Jay, I think we've known Marcio now. We met about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I think like our first conversation really revolved around software and different capabilities and things like that. And so I kind of want to jump specifically to software now as um, a way to how can we assess what we need, when we need it, and what's really important, because there's so many different tools out there that I think sometimes it gets difficult for people to navigate, especially when you already have a focus on daily operations and management. So something obviously to think about, uh, with so many different tools. I think over the last 10 years, probably, there have been obviously major developments. And so I kind of want to know, Marcio, what maybe you think some of today's software best practices are, what the key features might be that people should be looking for or making sure they currently have, and maybe what they currently have, and maybe what they're looking for in the future when they're looking to add new tools.
Right. Excuse me. So what Jay was saying is precisely what we were talking about in terms of early warnings. So it was just perfect. And in the same way that we said people change, the tools need to change as well. So we don't have professionals that want to just start filling data all day long in software. So to me, software today needs to be user-friendly. It should be intuitive, reducing the learning curve for the users, which is a great economy and savings for the companies in terms of training, because people can just do the work instead of sitting trying to learn the software. Also, easy report creation. We cannot stop a team anymore for 8 hours to create a report, or if we have like one of those huge companies and we have to open ticket at IT and pay $1 million to create a report and wait 6 months. Also integration. So software should be easily integrated with other tools we use in our organizations, and even with other organizations, as Jay was mentioning. Connectivity. So today, everything's about cloud access. So multi-device synchronization and integration capabilities are essential, in my opinion. And last but not least, less important, is the appropriate access levels, because we need to protect companies' competitiveness. So it's important that our employees, they have everything they need in terms of access, but only what they need. So those are important pillars to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, role-based, I like that. That kind of goes a little bit with your dark cockpit concept, right? In the information that a specific party needs. Absolutely. Jay, Marcio brought up some great points here. One thing I kind of want to ask you about, obviously, some of your thoughts as well when it comes to software focal points. But also, I kind of want you to touch on something that I think is maybe important, because a lot of times talking to people about software, there's this thought of, well, my software can do that. But I think there's kind of a fine line of maybe having like data versus functionality. And so could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So, in reality, what's usually the case is they have a system that touches those functional areas, but it doesn't necessarily socialize the information in the way that it needs to. So, a lot of times it will be some sort of high level database, or even just serve as some kind of data repository or ledger, if you will. But it's not actually socializing the information in a way that allows us to capture the day-to-day behaviors that are happening, the behaviors that are feeding a lot of these bottom line costs that we all have to manage. It's just like that shipping example that I gave earlier on in this discussion about capturing the rates that were not chosen. There are all these activities that are taking place that are not, that are just not being captured by these core systems. So usually if you press a little harder or you ask a few more questions, you'll still find that a lot of these folks, okay, that's great. You have a system that touches some of these areas, but usually they're still emailing spreadsheets back and forth, or they have documents on a shared drive that they're all managing. And that's all stuff that should be happening inside of an operating system or inside of these tools. So these are all processes and things that can be automated further. But people have just gotten used to the status quo. They're used to adding to that spreadsheet or sending that document all around for approval, etc. So I've even talked to companies who actually have personnel on their payroll, and their only job all day long is to go to different carrier websites and track shipments based on a spreadsheet. And they're updating the spreadsheet all day long, and they're putting it on a shared drive for people to see. So, I mean, that's just one very easy example, but there are some very important processes that are happening that are just still not being captured by these products. So, I mean, even to the budget topic you mentioned in the past, it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a big deal. When we start thinking about adding software tools, it doesn't have to mean that you're completely overhauling your current software suite or eliminating something. And it doesn't have to be a huge integration process or training process, as we touched on. It doesn't have to be a big, expensive task or a huge undertaking, long story short. So a lot of times, if you find the right tools and you find the right team, they will integrate these things almost seamlessly, and they'll do it in a quick amount of time. So you'll be up and running right away. It'll pay for itself. And whatever company you happen to speak with that offers tools like that, they should be able to quantify those benefits. And it should really be a no-brainer. How much does it cost me not to implement tools like this? So I would also venture to add, on these focal points of the software here, it also needs to be something scalable and somebody who can provide adequate support. There's companies that'll sell you something off the shelf, and they'll say, this is how it works. You can configure some settings here and there, and that's about it. Well, businesses change and needs change. So you need a tool that can grow and change with you, something that's a little more nimble. And then support, of course. Some of the more expensive tools out there, they have everything from videos to personal concierge, somebody who can work with you and train you and all that. But after a certain point, you're cut off. And if you have any questions or you need help, they're going to charge you for that. So all of those are things that I would probably not do. But there are lots of resources out there that are lightweight. They can implement quickly. They don't have to be a huge undertaking. And they have the right team that can support you through all the ebbs and flows of your company priorities.
Definitely. Yeah, that's, there to that point, there are a lot of companies who, put in the time to develop all the little intricacies and tools up front. And so now over the years, that's what allows them to be more plugins and be so cost effective, right? Is because we're not customizing something right away, or we're not customizing something new. Like, we have every piece in the toolbox, and it's already been developed, so we know it works, and here you go, we can plug this in, and it's going to be fast, to your point, efficient, and a lot cheaper than reaching out to your core company and saying, hey, we want to build this now, kind of thing. So yeah, hey, thank you guys. I know we're kind of closing in on time here, and so I just want to say thank you again for joining us. Do either of you have, for our viewers, last something you want to leave them with about either CloudLogix or Henshin?
I'd like to add something, if you don't mind. We've talked a lot today, or I've talked a lot today about software solutions and, lightweight tools and all that, and how meaningful they are. But I feel like I should quantify this a little bit. Just to give you a quick example, we have a large client that we started working with not too long ago. And just in the first 60 days of using our services, they were able to save 40% on their freight spend. So and there are several other things that we're monitoring and measuring and that they're using our software for. But just that one exercise, it more than paid for itself already in the first 60 days. So these tools can and do work. It's just about finding the right team for your company and finding the right solutions that work for you. But if I could leave you with anything today to run a supply chain as efficiently as possible, it would be to definitely leverage tools and technology, and it doesn't have to be scary.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Marcio, any final thoughts?
Yes. I heard once that people will forget what you did for them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So at Henshin, what we try to do is to make everyone that we take care, that we train, to feel special and capable. And that's the transformation we create. And we really believe that we add value to the companies. We can save like years of training with our approach. And I would like to invite everyone to tear down walls together and build bridges. That's the beauty of the relationship. And I believe that the road for transformation and success is for all of us. And so thank you very much for this great opportunity to be here with you, Jay and Nick.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to have the opportunity to catch up and talk again. And so with that, I kind of want to leave the viewers with one final thing here. So I just kind of want to give you some things you can expect over the next 24 hours. So we had a nice turnout, it looks like, for our viewership. So what we're going to do is we're going to send some information about CloudLogix and Henshin to the people who attended and registered today. And in addition to that, we're going to give you the webinar recording in case there was something that you found impactful that you want to re-listen to and think about. And I think the last thing here is really want to offer up a complimentary consultation with both Henshin and the CloudLogix team. So you can, have an opportunity to potentially implement some of the tools and principles that both of our teams use daily with our current clients. So again, want to thank everyone for joining us. And in addition to that, if anything resonated with you guys today and you want to reach out to anyone, feel free. Here's our contact information. I'll leave it up for a minute here. And you're more than welcome to reach out to any of us at any time. We'd be happy to put you in the right direction with the right person. So again, Jalen, Marcio, thank you guys. Thank you to all of our viewers who attended today. We're thankful for the opportunity to talk for you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.